Arlington Park are being received and reviewed. Arlington Heights Mayor Tom Hayes says everything remains a possibility, including a Chicago Bears stadium and the prospect that there will be some horse racing preserved in some form. Chicago sports. Bears are preparing for the NFL draft tonight in Cleveland. Bulls were beaten by the Knicks 113-94. Sox and Tigers rained out. Cubs were blanked by the Braves 10-0. The news service of Verizon Small Business Days. Now through May 7th, meet with a business specialist for a complimentary tech assessment. Get limited time wireless offers. Learn more at verizon.com/smallbusiness. A check of traffic and weather is on the way next on AM 560.
Hi, it's Amy Jacobson, and you've probably seen the stories that some big box retailers are caving under pressure from progressives to take MyPillow products off their shelves. And by now, you've all heard me talk about MyPillow, but guess what? Mike has done it again with his new MyPillow My Slippers. It's taken Mike over 2 years to develop them. They're designed to wear indoors and outdoors all day long. My Slippers are made with MyPillow foam and impact gel to help prevent fatigue. And it's made with quality leather suede. For a limited time, Mike is offering 40% off his new My Slippers. You can show your support for this great American company by ordering, and don't let cancel culture win. So go to MyPillow.com and click on the radio listener square. There you'll also find deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets, the MyPillow mattress topper, and one of my favorites, the MyPillow towel sets, all made right here in America. Or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code AMY.
Hey sis, I just met with Mom's doctors. They said that for her to go home after rehab, she needs a caregiver at the house to help her out.
I don't know how I can swing that with work and the kids.
Mom needs someone that can provide her personal care and someone to keep her company when we can't be there.
Growing older means an increasing number of major life changes. Here For You Home Care Services understands the difficulties of helping an aging loved one and provides care with compassion and commitment so they can age safely wherever they call home and still maintain their sense of independence. With committed caregivers and professionals impassioned to helping the disabled and older adults, Here For You Home Care Services specializes in personal care, medication reminders, transportation needs and housekeeping, or just being there for companionship. Let their family care for your loved one. Call Here For You Home Care Services to schedule an evaluation. 630-282-1100. 630-282-1100. Here For You Home Care Services is licensed, insured, and bonded.
Can the daily recommended servings of fruits and vegetables fit into just 6 capsules? Yes. We start by sourcing organically grown whole fruits and vegetables. We ensure they are picked at peak ripeness. All of our produce is third-party tested for pesticides, heavy metals, bad bacteria, and nutrients. They are then washed, cut, and put through an advanced vacuum cold process which removes the water using pressure. This maximizes the nutritional value while preserving the color, smell, and taste of the fruit or vegetable. The freeze-dried food is then ground into a fine powder without adding any additives, fillers, or extracts. These powdered foods are then mixed in our proprietary blends and encapsulated, locking out air and moisture. The capsules are then bottled and shipped directly to our customers. Balance of Nature is now offering 35% off on any new preferred order. Go to balanceofnature.com today and use discount code CHICAGO.
Looking to hire? Indeed will help you speed up the process. They have 135 skills tests to help you find the right candidates faster. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
8:38, Team Hochberg Traffic Center time and Jim.
In Antioch, the intersection of 173 and 83 is blocked with a stuck train. On the inbound Edens, your trip time is 21 minutes, Lake Hook to Montrose, and outbound 17. Inbound Kennedy, delays start at Cumberland, 42 minutes, O'Hare to downtown, 26 from Montrose, 20 in the Express, outbound 40 to the airport. Eisenhower, 45 minutes, 390 to downtown. Outbound, it's 34. On the Stevenson from 355 to Lakeshore Drive, it's 35 minutes. The Ryan, 20 minutes, 95th to downtown. We're seeing delays on northbound Lakeshore Drive, 18th Drive to Roosevelt. 8094 westbound, traffic is slow. Grant to past Indianapolis Boulevard. It's 28 minutes from the Indiana Toll Road to Bishop 4. That's traffic. I'm Jim Telemonte.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast. Cloudy, warmer with a shower, high 64 today, 49 at O'Hare. Next news at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. Let freedom ring this afternoon at 2 with Sean Hannity on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. My most recent 60 Seconds of Sanity, I called for the Republican Party to stop accepting political donations from Fortune 500 corporate PACs, as well as the C-suite executives for those companies, because how, both morally and politically, can you accept financing from your enemies, particularly when you're getting pennies on the dollar with respect to the financing they provide their friends? What kind of sense does that make? And how does that help crystallize the choice for the American public in terms of who is standing for the people who play by the rules, middle-income Americans who don't think that every law is something that can be applied or not applied based on somebody's identitarian characteristics? Well, Senator Ted Cruz must have been listening. In the Wall Street Journal, he has announced he is not going to take donations from those very individuals. Good. Talking about the Fortune 500 reaction to the Georgia election reform law. He writes of these CEOs that were so outspoken. This is the point in the drama when Republicans usually shrug their shoulders, call these companies job creators, and start to cut taxes. Not this time. This time we won't look the other way on Coca-Cola's $12 billion in back taxes owed. This time when Major League Baseball lobbies to preserve its multi-billion-dollar antitrust exemption, we'll say no thank you. This time when Boeing asks us for billions in corporate welfare, we'll simply let the Export-Import Bank expire. For too long, woke CEOs have been fair-weather friends to the Republican Party. They like us until the left's digital pitchforks come out, then they run away. Exactly. And obviously, Ted Cruz wasn't listening to me. He came to this conclusion all on his own because it's an obvious one. And that is a nice segue to our next guest, Matt Purple, who's a senior editor for The American Conservative, theamericanconservative.com. So you say you want a culture war, Fortune 500 CEOs and others. Matt, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Dan. Good to be with you.
It's nice to see Ted Cruz strike a blow for principle here and also just common sense with respect to the politics of it.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I titled that piece, So You Say You Want a Culture War. I actually don't really want a culture war. I mean, I think culture is something that should be exchanged and that should be promoted, you know, that should be studied. It informs a society. It's the sinew of our society. For it to be warring with itself or warring between different cultures within the same society is a bit deranged and disfigured. You know, it's not something that I want. But I think we've been forced into this position, and I think Ted Cruz is ultimately right. And you know, these corporations, which once upon a time when I was younger, were very hesitant about social change. I mean, you can go back to the 1990s and Folgers is still running that same commercial with that same white family of five over and over again because they understand that's their customer base and they're nervous to, you know, move on to anything else. 30 years after the civil rights movement, they're still stuck on that. Initially they were very slow to kind of adopt, I think, even good social changes, but that was before Twitter. That was before the social media mobs. That was before wokeness. That was before these millennial staffers started to come up through their ranks. And now we see them as organs, as agents of radical change rather than bulwarks against it.
Right. And the thing, too, about this is, I think the overwhelming majority of Americans are sort of in the common sense place that you just described. Unfortunately, you have the champagne socialists who are in charge of and thus have a disproportionate influence on American culture because they're in charge of all of these civic and business and educational and and arts and entertainment oriented institutions. And so, it's not so much a North versus South. It's sort of the masses against the central planners. And there's not that many of them. It's just they have a disproportionate share of political and cultural power.
Yeah, the Pew Research Center did a big analysis of the last election, studying why Democrats, despite Joe Biden winning, didn't have the big pickups they expected in Congress. They actually lost seats in Congress. And there were two main answers they came to. One was socialism, and the other was wokeness. People don't like this. They're not on board with this. And, again, like I was kind of saying before, I'd rather be sitting with you here today talking about the marginal tax rate and, debating that instead, something arcane like that. And most people would ignore federal politics and the country would move on and we'd all be fine. Instead, we're arguing about Mr. Potato Head. But I think we have to argue about Mr. Potato Head. I think we have to argue about these sudden changes that Hasbro is going to be making to Monopoly because it's too capitalist or whatever. Because my children are going to play that Monopoly game one day, and they're going to play with Mr. Potato Head. And that's going to inform their thinking far more than the marginal tax rate. So, I think we have to be culture warriors. I'm just kind of a reluctant one myself.
Well, what if any Fortune 500 company has stood up to the cultural warriors?
I'm not sure many of them have. I mean, you've had instances of some of them holding out a little bit or at least experiencing pressure from their customer bases. My mind goes to the NFL, which got put in this very difficult position with Colin Kaepernick, and I think waffled a bit and really ticked off their customer base. And they've seen, massive tune-outs. I mean, people have just tuned out the NFL, which is a shame to me. I really like watching football, but and they've backed away from this stuff a little bit. You have owners like Jerry Jones who have prohibited their players from kneeling on the sidelines. You have, it was not, I think, as woke last season as a lot of people were expecting it to be. You didn't have those kinds of left-wing messages coming out of every corner. So I think that pressure can work. I think that boycotts can work. And certainly in the case of the MLB, which, if anything, is an even more, or should be an even more conservative institution than the NFL is. But that pressure does have to be applied.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we quietly turn off the TV or we stop attending sporting events and so forth. But the left, if somebody runs afoul of the orthodoxy, like the CEO of Goya Foods, then it's all hands on deck. And maybe there's something to be gleaned from that.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This isn't an economic argument at the end of the day. I'm still a capitalist. I still, vastly prefer free markets over certainly centrally managed ones. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that if the left goes to these businesses and they say it's either our way or else, and we counter by saying, well, that's the private sector, we can't do anything about that, our hands are tied, then we're not fighting. Then we're not putting up any kind of fight. We're not even registering on what are very, very important issues and very sweeping major overhauls, major changes. So again, it's not about capitalism versus socialism. It's about going to these businesses and saying, hey, no, this is not, you're not inflicting this on our kids. We have our own base too. We can boycott you as well. And in fact, there's far more of us than there are of the wokesters.
Now, President Biden yesterday in his not State of the Union address did all the box checking of the cultural Marxist identitarian wish list, including saying, transgender people, especially young people, I have your back. It seems like you're in agreement. I note your piece. I'm all in for Caitlyn Jenner for governor.
Well, look, first of all, Caitlyn Jenner is actually saying some very good things on the lockdowns and on the absolute mess that the Democrats have made in California. And somebody has to bring media attention to that race. So if she can do it, then, it's not going to be done by some of the more minor Republicans who are running. So if she can pull that off, then I'm all in. But more to the point, they're almost certainly going to lose this election. To recall Gavin Newsom, the polls find that most people in California want him to stay. There's far fewer registered Republicans in California than there were during the last recall election back in 2003. So I'll take this opportunity to make woke people feel uncomfortable, right? I mean, let's have a trans Republican run on this major ticket in this major election. And let's see just how hateful they really are. Let's see how they respond. So far, the reaction has not been very good.
You're not holding out too much hope for Randy Quaid's gubernatorial bid?
Hey, the more the merrier. I mean, I think last time around we had like a porn star and a guy who wanted to legalize pet ferrets. I mean, it was wonderful exercise in democracy.
Finally.
Well, do you think any woke Democrats will support her?
Probably not. I mean, what I've been reading is, from some of the Democrats who've responded to her, is that they're suddenly retreating back onto class, right? They're saying, okay, well, she might be trans, she might be a trans pioneer, but she's also rich. And so for that reason, we can't support her. So all of a sudden, class matters all over again. It's just whatever identity excuse they can find.
Right. I mean, this is an ideological battle. People mistake it for an identitarian battle solely. That's a tool. That's a tactic they're using. I mean, look at the way that Tim Scott is treated. He's a Black American whose family, as well as he himself, has suffered under the injustices of racist laws and just racism culturally. And yet he's an Uncle Tom. I mean, that's what he says. He gets called it by leftists because he's not on board with the ideological program. And so if you're not on board with the ideological program, you can have a very high intersectional score and it's not going to matter.
Oh, yeah. No, and cheers to everything you just said. I thought, by the way, I was only tuning in and out of the address last night because I just kind of knew what was going to be said in advance. Right. But I did watch Tim Scott's address, and I thought that's a man who might be the future of the Republican Party right there. I mean, he makes a very good case, I think, for America, for traditional American values and the American spirit. I'd like to see a lot more from him.
Agreed. He is Matt Purple. You can see a lot more of him if you go to theamericanconservative.com and consume his work. Senior editor there. Matt, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Matt. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Heading into spring, I've been spending a lot of time pondering, analyzing, and debating something extremely important to men, and even many women, and that's whether a new driver would improve my golf game. I would say I'm somewhere between embarrassing and appalling at golf, but man, do I love it. And all my buddies show up with these epic flash, big Maverick Bertha drivers, and I can't help but feel like they've got this massive advantage on me and my persimmons. It's Ryan, and at our Faith and Family Mortgage team, we're proud to have a pretty special advantage ourselves, and one that can be a big deal for you. Our team is an arm of a bigger company who is a direct lender, which means our company uses its own money and makes its own decisions within its own walls. There's no middleman, and this advantage often allows us to get you a better rate, saving monthly and lifelong money on a refinance or new home purchase. We're much better at mortgages